For many actresses, entering a relationship with a studio chief wasn't a matter of romance or desire. It was survival. Hollywood was built on hierarchy, influence, and the absolute power of the studio heads who could decide whether an actress became a superstar or disappeared forever. Some actresses were manipulated into relationships. Others were pressured or cornered by men who controlled the roles, the publicity, and the money. Rita Hayworth, the screen goddess controlled by men. Rita Hayworth became an icon of beauty and sensuality, immortalized by her role in Gilda and recognized as America's love goddess in the 1940s. But behind the camera, her life was far from glamorous. She was a woman whose life was constantly shaped and often restricted by powerful men. Rita, born Margarita Carmen Cancino, grew up in a family of dancers. Her father, Eduardo Cancino, was a strict and demanding man who treated her more as a tool for earning money than as a daughter. From a young age, she was forced to perform in nightclubs and adult venues, often in front of strangers who treated her as a spectacle rather than a child. Many years later, she revealed that her early childhood had robbed her of normal innocence, teaching her to comply with men's expectations. When she became a star under Columbia Pictures and Harry Cohn, her situation only worsened. Cohn was obsessed with control, deciding which roles she could play, how she should look, and even whom she could see publicly. Reports suggest that when influential men requested to meet or date Rita, Cohn often arranged or blocked these encounters, depending on what suited his interests. She was treated as an investment, a product of the studio, rather than a human being. Her marriage to Orson Welles initially appeared romantic, but soon revealed the complexities of power in relationships. Welles, a brilliant director, could be charming and controlling at the same time. Rita was left alone for long periods, expected to comply with his eccentric lifestyle while caring for a child. She was adored as a muse, not treated as an equal partner. Rita's later marriage to Prince Ali Khan, son of an Ismaili spiritual leader, was another form of power imbalance. Ali Khan was immensely wealthy and influential. At first, Rita was charmed by luxury and passion, but soon found herself monitored and restricted. Ali Khan wanted to control what she wore, whom she met, and even tried to persuade her to quit acting, believing that a princess should not work in Hollywood. Rita Hayworth's life was a constant struggle for autonomy. On screen, she radiated strength and sensuality, but off-screen, she endured manipulation and control. Her famous words reflected this tragic contrast. Men fall in love with Gilda. They wake up with me. Joan Crawford and Harry Cohn, a dark dance of power and fear. Joan Crawford is remembered as fierce, ambitious, stylish, and unforgettable. She dominated the screen for decades, reinventing herself repeatedly, refusing to fade away as Hollywood changed. But behind her powerful image was a story marked by vulnerability, survival instincts, and the desperate need to stay relevant in an industry that discarded women without hesitation. One of the most complex and unsettling relationships in Joan's life involved Harry Cohn, the tyrannical head of Columbia Pictures. Cohn was feared throughout Hollywood, known for his temper, bluntness, and ruthless demands. He ruled Columbia with an iron fist, and actresses who displeased him were either punished with bad roles or removed from the roster entirely. His authority created an environment where compliance was not optional. It was mandatory. Crawford worked for MGM during the peak of Cohn's power, but as her popularity fluctuated, she needed studio heads to remain interested in her. The competition among actresses was fierce, and slipping even slightly meant losing roles, publicity, and status. Many Hollywood historians suggest that Crawford entered an arrangement with Cohn that ensured she remained valuable in his eyes, and therefore protected from the fate of many actresses who resisted him. Accounts from insiders describe Cohn as aggressively interested in Crawford, and their relationship has been characterized as one involving power pressure rather than passion. Some writers argue that Crawford understood exactly what Cohn wanted and chose to give it to him because the alternative was professional death. Others believe she resisted at first, but eventually complied under fear of retaliation, as Cohn was notorious for blacklisting women who refused him. The dynamic between them became part of Hollywood legend. Cohn was loud, angry, possessive, and unpredictable. Crawford was strategic, calculating, and determined to maintain her place in Hollywood no matter the cost. Their interactions were described by those around them as tense and complicated, a mix of intimidation, bargaining, and unspoken threats. Even after Crawford became a major star, she remained aware of Cohn's influence. He had connections across studios, controlled distribution channels, and could quietly shape the careers of actresses beyond Columbia. Maintaining a relationship with him, even reluctantly, helped secure Crawford's place in the bigger Hollywood network. One of the most chilling aspects of this story is how normalized such arrangements were. Actresses were warned, often by other women, "Don't cross Cohn." He expected loyalty from actresses he considered his, whether or not they were officially under contract. Those who defied him risked their future. Crawford, who came from poverty and climbed to fame through relentless discipline, refusing Cohn wasn't an option. She had clawed her way to the top and would do whatever was necessary to stay there. Judy Garland and Louis B. Mayer, coercive control under the MGM system. Judy Garland's rise to fame is one of Hollywood's most heartbreaking stories. She was a once-in-a-generation talent, a girl with a powerful voice, expressive eyes, and a sincerity that could break your heart in a single note. Yet from the moment she entered MGM at 13, she became a possession of the studio, and especially of its iron-fisted leader, Louis B. Mayer. Mayer was one of the most powerful men in Hollywood. He ran MGM like a kingdom, and he viewed Judy as the studio's greatest treasure. He often referred to her as his little girl, but the phrase carried an unsettling undertone. Mayer didn't just act as a father figure. He exercised an invasive, coercive control over her life. Whenever Judy tried to assert independence, Mayer reminded her that he had discovered her, shaped her, and could easily destroy her career. Mayer's behavior was both emotional and physical in ways Judy later described as deeply uncomfortable. He used affection as a weapon, blending praise with manipulation. There were reports of him holding her too closely, touching her inappropriately under the guise of comfort, and insisting she sit on his lap during private meetings. Judy was young, insecure, and desperate for approval, a child surrounded by adults who treated her like a commodity. The power imbalance was immense. Mayer controlled her wages, her diet, her roles, and her public image. When Judy complained about exhaustion, weight issues, or emotional strain, Mayer dismissed her concerns and pressured her to work harder. He insisted she remain the girl next door, always cheerful, always innocent, always slender. To enforce this image, MGM doctors gave Judy stimulants to keep her working and sleeping pills to shut her down at night. These pills eventually became a lifelong addiction that contributed to her physical and emotional collapse. Mayer's influence extended even into her romantic life. He discouraged relationships he disapproved of and promoted others that suited the studio. Judy was often pushed into publicity pairings to sell movies or improve her public appeal. Mayer had the authority to approve or deny marriage requests for actors under contract. Judy lived in a tightly controlled world where she could barely make a personal decision without the studio's approval. Although Mayer was never formally accused of assault in a legal sense, many biographers describe his behavior as predatory, manipulative, and emotionally abusive. Judy later revealed that she felt trapped and powerless. Mayer's authority shaped her entire youth, turning her into both a star and a victim of a system that demanded absolute obedience from its actresses. Her relationship with Mayer has since become a symbol of Hollywood's coercive power dynamics. illustrating how a young girl with extraordinary gifts could be manipulated by a man who ran the studio that controlled her future. Jean Harlow, the platinum blonde, exploited by studios and men. Jean Harlow experienced one of the most tragic lives of classic Hollywood. She died at just 26, yet in that short time she faced pressures most people could not imagine in a lifetime. Harlow's beauty and charisma made her irresistible to audiences, but also to the powerful men around her. She grew up in Kansas City and moved to Hollywood in the early 1920s. Harlow quickly became a starlet under Howard Hughes and MGM executives. While the studio system groomed her to perfection, it also forced her into situations that prioritized male desire over her safety or comfort. Men in positions of power often dictated her public image, her romantic life, and even her private relationships. Her marriages exemplified the manipulations women endured. Her first husband, Charles McGrew, was reportedly abusive and controlling. The young Harlow had little legal protection or public support. Later, under studio guidance, she married Paul Byrne, an MGM producer. Byrne's status gave him power over her career, and while the marriage was official on paper, the relationship was far from consensual in emotional terms. Byrne's own secretive and troubled personal life added stress and instability, and rumors later suggested coercion and pressure within the marriage. Even as Harlow became a household name with films like Red Dust and Dinner at 8, the male-dominated studio system kept a tight leash on her image. Directors, producers, and executives constantly shaped her roles to meet male fantasies, not her ambitions. She was a commodity of desire, a platinum blonde ideal designed to attract audiences and control men's attention, while her personal choices remained constrained by the men who wielded influence behind the scenes. The pressures extended beyond career and marriage. Harlow faced relentless scrutiny over her behavior, her relationships, and her appearance. She had little ability to fight back, as the system was rigged in favor of men who controlled publicity, contracts, and finances. Her charm and resilience masked a life filled with coercion and limited agency. Loretta Young, the Hollywood actress who lived in shadows. Loretta Young's story also reflects the harsh realities of powerful men in Hollywood. Known for her elegance, beauty, and talent, Young's career began in the silent film era. She successfully transitioned into talkies, becoming one of the most respected actresses of the 1930s and 1940s. Yet behind her poised exterior, she endured pressures that few could imagine. Young's life was shaped early on by a combination of studio pressures and male predation. Allegedly, during the height of her career, she was coerced into an affair with a studio executive, an experience that had lasting consequences for her personal life. This encounter led to a secret pregnancy, which she managed discreetly to protect her career and reputation, a situation unthinkable today in terms of public scrutiny and media ethics. She gave birth to her daughter privately, sending the child to be raised temporarily by family friends, while Young continued working under intense public and studio expectations. Loretta was also under constant scrutiny by studio executives who dictated her public relationships. Any romantic involvement had to meet the standards of her carefully crafted public image. Powerful men frequently attempted to manipulate her into personal relationships, knowing that her compliance could benefit their careers or reputations. Despite her grace and talent, Young had to navigate these situations while maintaining her public persona as a virtuous and elegant star. Even as Young became a legendary actress and later transitioned to television, the pressure from men in Hollywood never completely vanished. She had to negotiate her personal and professional life carefully, constantly aware of how any misstep could be exploited. Her story is one of resilience, secrecy, and quiet strength, managing to survive and thrive despite the coercion and manipulation of those in power. Marilyn Monroe and Joe Schenck, an early alleged arrangement for survival. Marilyn Monroe is one of the most recognizable faces in history, a symbol of beauty, vulnerability, and Hollywood tragedy. But before she became an icon, she was Norma Jean, a struggling young woman desperate for stability, work, and a chance at success. Her early years in the industry exposed her to the rawest form of Hollywood power imbalance, where the men at the top expected favors in exchange for career advancement. Among the powerful figures associated with Marilyn's early career was Joe Schenck, a founding giant of 20th Century Fox and one of the most influential executives in Hollywood. He was wealthy, politically connected, and able to make or break careers with a single phone call. When Marilyn was still modeling, taking bit parts, and trying to get attention from casting directors, Schenck became one of the first major studio heads to take personal interest in her. Their relationship has long been described by Hollywood insiders as an arrangement. While not publicly acknowledged as sexual by Marilyn herself, many around her noted that she often visited Schenck's home, attended dinners with him, and appeared to be close in ways that suggested a personal connection beyond mentorship. Several friends, including actor Eli Wallach, later stated openly that Marilyn had told them she saw Schenck because it helped her career. For Marilyn, who grew up in foster homes and struggled for financial survival, the dynamic offered security. Schenck provided her with opportunities, and his endorsement gave her access to auditions she never could have reached on her own. He recommended her to producers called casting directors and instructed people at Fox to find something for the girl. Soon after, Marilyn began landing more roles, small at first, but increasingly noticeable. Schenck's influence didn't just open doors, it protected her from the brutal instability that swallowed many aspiring actresses. Hollywood was filled with young women hoping for a break, and studio executives knew they could use their power to extract whatever they wanted. In Marilyn's case, the power imbalance was stark. She was in her late teens and early 20s, while Schenck was a wealthy, established married man in his 60s. Those who worked around them later described Marilyn's involvement as transactional. She was not in love, they said, but she understood that Schenck's support could change her future. In a sense, it did. With his help came meetings, contracts, and the first real steps toward her transformation into a global star. The alleged relationship reflects the unspoken reality of Hollywood at the time. Actresses with few resources were pressured into compromising situations to survive. Marilyn, with her troubled childhood, lack of family support, and hunger for success, was especially vulnerable. The system rewarded her compliance, and her relationship with Schenck became one of the earliest examples of how she navigated a world where men controlled access to opportunity. Later in life, Marilyn spoke candidly about the casting couch culture of old Hollywood, saying, "It was a world where you had to please the men who ran it, or you didn't work." She never named Schenck publicly, but the early years of her life bear the marks of a system that forced her into relationships she might never have chosen freely.